So it was the summer of 2012. I had just arrived in London and I was coming from the US. At the time, I had just finished a job, actually lost a job, and I was looking for fun in London. It was the Olympics and I was really looking forward to it. But then I felt I was really depressed. I needed to go home, and I felt like I wanted to go to Africa. My friends were quite surprised at the time. They were saying, why would you want to lose the comfort of London, New York? Why would you go to Africa? And more importantly, why would you leave your comfort and freedom as a gay person in the West and move to homophobic countries? But I had made up my mind. I really wanted to go to Africa. And I decided to go to Nigeria, which is my mother's country, which is a beautiful country of 1,000 varieties of cultures, promising economy. And at the time, the media was full of stories about Africa rising and how the new frontier is Africa. And I wanted to be part of all of that. So I made up my mind and I went to Lagos. So I moved to Lagos and I spent time trying to figure out what to do in terms of career, in terms of settling down. And then in 2013, I started hearing headlines in the news. The government wanted to pass a new anti-gay law, and the media was quite full of those stories. Newspaper headlines, radio talk shows. We could hear politicians, religious leaders, ordinary Nigerians, all calling for a ban on gay marriage, all calling for more punishment for gay people, and even people calling for killing of gay people. It was quite a worrying time. And then came that fateful day of first week of January 2014. I remember at the time I was sitting in a bar watching TV, and then the news came. The news came that the president had just signed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, which is basically a very draconian anti-gay law. It came to me as a shock. I remember at the time there was a person sitting next to me at the bar. The person looked at me seeking my approval, his views. And I felt so numb, like really unable to respond to this person. I also felt ashamed. I felt ashamed that the country would enshrine hate in a piece of legislation in this manner. I'm ashamed that the country could criminalize a whole portion of its population simply because they are different and they love differently. That feeling of shame got me thinking a lot. So I spent time thinking, why did I feel ashamed? Especially in the front of this stranger in the bar. Why was I unable to speak up and explain to the person how this law would make a lot of people more miserable, and how it will fuel violence? But I was totally numb, I couldn't speak. So it got me thinking about shame. And I realized at the time that it was not the first time. There were incidences where those feelings of shame had happened to me in relation to sexuality. For example, I would have experiences talking to random ordinary people on the streets, taxi drivers, for example, who would ask me that question: where is your family? Are they in Nigeria or are they abroad? And I would say to them, so you mean my parents, you mean my siblings? And of course they would say, no, we mean your own family. So those moments were sometimes difficult, and I would choose my words very carefully. But sometimes it brought those feelings again of shame and guilt. Maybe I was ungrateful for not being married, for not producing children. And I was in my late 40s. So feelings of shame and guilt would come, even if it lasted for a short while, it was still there. What I realized was that feelings of shame happen at times when you least expect them. But sometimes they lead you to behave in certain ways. In my case, for example, I spent a long time hating my own pictures, especially pictures from my teenage years. I remember how I hated the way I looked, I hated my poses. People were telling me you shouldn't cross your legs in certain ways. Men don't cross their legs like that. My fingers were always too wide apart, too feminine, I thought. So I used to blame my sexuality for things like that. So for that reason, I avoided taking pictures. And when social media became popular, I didn't understand why people would post pictures of themselves day after day. I didn't understand it because I couldn't do it. It took me over a decade to accept the fact that I was okay. I could post my pictures on social media. And that happened through the help of photography. But it showed me how shame can lead you to avoidance, lead you to try to disappear from the public view. It can lead you to basically try to be away from the public. And that for me was quite difficult because I was in a job that required a lot of public speaking, a lot of public presence. So I had to deal with this issue personally. What I found was that shame is often a result of the pressures that are put on us by society, by family, by the environment around us. So there's a lot of pressure on us, especially us queer people, to perform. And we are often unable to perform, and we internalize shame because we are unable to meet societal demands. So I think personally it's important to recognize that however empowered we are, it can happen to us, and it is okay. It's also important to, of course, it's important to acknowledge that we all have blessings. Personally, I appreciate the fact that I live in Africa, I live in Nigeria, and I'm proud of the work I do for communities in Nigeria and all around the continent. But for me, it's also important to sometimes look inside and have those private conversations. And once we're comfortable with ourselves, we can also talk to others. So it's important to talk to other fellow gay and lesbian people about this issue of shame, guilt, all these negative feelings that come up in our hearts in relation to sexuality. Even better, we can do group discussions for those of us who can, group discussions on this topic. I find it quite rewarding personally because it helps me to grow, it helps me to find solutions, it helps me to thrive and feel proud all over again.
Remember when we were kids, those days the sky so blue. Remember when we played games and the world wasn't yet so cruel. Remember when I lost you once, when I let go of us, yeah. Remember how I felt when you left and my heart tore into two. And now we are at crossroads. Do we stay or do we go? We have a chance to say hi or goodbye tonight.